Hi, welcome to the 10-minute video summary of the message that was shared at Henrietta Christian Fellowship on the 14th of May, 2017. My name is Don Bold. I'm the pastor of the church, and for the next 10 minutes I'd like to just share with you some of the highlights of this morning's message. Today, of course, is Mother's Day, and so the message really centers around something around which I have no experience and no expertise at all, which is motherhood. And so I'd like just to start by sharing, it's a poem that I found that no one knows who wrote it, but it's just called A Mother's Love. A mother's love is something that no one can explain. It's made of deep devotion, of sacrifice and pain. It is endless and unselfish, enduring come what may, for nothing can destroy it or take that love away. It is patient and forgiving when all others are forsaking, and it never fails or falters, even though the heart is breaking. It believes beyond believing when the world around condemns, and it glows with all the beauty of the rarest, brightest gems. It is far beyond defining, it defies all explanation, and it still remains a secret, like the mysteries of creation. A many-splendored miracle man cannot understand, and another wondrous evidence of God's tender guiding hand. And again, the source is unknown. You know, the scriptures begin by addressing motherhood in the Ten Commandments, really, where we're told to honor father and mother. And, so God considers, this whole place of mother in our lives to be something very, very important, and to always be honored and to be esteemed, and beyond that honor and esteem, to be supported. And in Ephesians 6, 1 through 3, after telling children to obey their parents in the Lord, for this is right, we are told, honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise. And so God gave all the commandments concerning how to treat God, how to act towards God, never made one promise. But when he addressed this first of all human relationships of father and mother, he made a promise that it may be well with you, and that you may live long in the land. And, a mother's love in Scripture is given as a superlative. El Shaddai, the Almighty, the powerful one, really, that word is a picture of God as this many-breasted one who is able to meet the needs of all. And, beyond that, God speaking in Isaiah chapter 49, verses 15 and 16 says, can a woman forget her nursing child and have no compassion on the son of her womb? Even though these may forget, God says, I will not. So he uses a mother's love as in kind devotion as a superlative to compare his own love to, and to say, my love exceeds even this. Okay, and so, to understand this wonderful place. And, we've been talking about burdens, all right, and today we're talking about the burden of a mother's heart, which is that, yes, she's one that God commands to be honored, but she's also one called in that place of honor to be one who loves in enduring ways that indeed constitute a burden. In English now, we tend to think of the word burden as a negative thing. But some burdens are intended by God to be borne as a witness, to be borne as a necessity. There's all kinds of reasons why God may, give us a burden. In fact, when somebody is given a ministry, it is often referred to as a burden. The burden of the Lord, given to me. Jesus said that if you want to follow him, you need to take up your cross, take up your burden, and follow him. He said, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. And so, moms, this is your burden, the burden that you carry in this stubborn love that you have for those that you count as your children. And the writer to the Proverbs, I know in this place it's a father talking to his son about the kind of special love that he might find amongst men, but I believe that the scripture so clearly defines also the kind of love that a mother has when it says in Proverbs 17:17 that a friend loves at all times and a brother is born for adversity. Because I think that really is also very descriptive of a mother's love and the way that they love, that stubbornness. Mother's bond of stubborn love actually begins before you were born. From the first moment that a mom knows she's carrying, and that's an interesting word, carrying a child, that there's this bond that forms. And, you think about it, who else can say, I knew you before you were born? But moms know their children before they're born. And there's a lot that goes with that I won't get into today. But God told Jeremiah the prophet in Jeremiah 1:5, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And the only other person who comes close to that would have been his mother, who would have known him, of course, in the womb. And, we know now that the children know their moms in the womb. They learn their smell. They learn the sound of their voice, that when they're born, they know that that person who's holding them and carrying them once again in a different way now is somebody special. And they may not even have the word mother yet, but they certainly know that this is their mom. And Psalm 22:9, it tells us that it was through a mother's careful and faithful care over us that God taught us to trust Him. It's in the Psalms. The psalmist says that you brought me forth from the womb, and he says to God, "You taught me to trust You at my mother's breast." You showed me your faithfulness in that. And so again, the special place of this stubborn and faithful love. And mothers carry us before we're born. They carry us after we're born, and they carry us in many ways. Throughout the course of our lives. And I remember, in that case, my mother, when I started working at Teen Challenge, and I think she kind of took in a breath, like, and I remember when I told her 10 years later that I was leaving that to go work in church ministry, she exhaled, and I said, "Were you holding your breath for 10 years? And she said, "Yeah, I think I was," because, that whole bond, and I became so intimately aware of the difference, during the time after the loss of our son, when I observed just the difference in the connection of my wife's heart to this child that we had lost, and mine. I mean, mine was deep and profound, but hers reached so far beyond that stubborn and enduring love that began, before he was born, and continues to this day as it does for me as well. But there's a difference there in that kind of love, and it's a burden that only a mother's heart can know. And so, I want to just talk for a moment about this, that, that burden, can be seen as a problem, as a forming influence, or it can be looked at as a virtue. And if I could just, first of all, the announcements got stuck into my notes here. The problem, that mothers choose to stubbornly love someone that they know will cause problems and even pain. And to an outsider's eye, they hang on too long, and they should let go before they get hurt. And when I think of the love talked about in John 3:16, Jesus did not let go of His love for us. God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. And I look at this parallel here, the very Christ-like stand that moms take. But it's a problem. It's a problem because they're not God. They're human, and that love is tested in them. But it's also this forming influence, because both mother and child are formed in the midst of this relationship that's being worked out through the course of life. And a part of what defines motherhood is the patience that is willing to stay and live under the stresses of such a relationship. Children are formed by it too. This willingness that a mom has to stay under that difficulty and dwell there in order to love that child. It's formative. It's formative. And when it's broken, it's a deep loss. And finally, the virtue. That the same way that I viewed it as a problem, I also view it as a virtue. That they choose to stubbornly love someone that they know will cause problems and pain. But much of what I know to be the patient love of God is formed by an analogy of what I experienced and the relationship that I had with my mother, and the love that she showed towards me, and the stubbornness of that love. And I look in 1 John 3:1. See how great a love the Father has bestowed upon us, that we should be called the children of God, and such we are. That's a reflection also of just this love that God has for us. But that mothers call us their children, even when sometimes we cause them pain. And the virtue is simply contained in this, and with this I'll close. That though the relationship might seem to be imposed on mothers, mothers choose again and again to stubbornly love and not give up. They look, they listen, they look to heaven and sigh, and then they choose again and again to keep on loving us. And with that, I'm going to say, God bless you and happy Mother's Day. We'll see you next time on the 10-Minute Video Summary.